Welcome, friends. Today I'm going to tell you a story of resilience, love, and the transformative power of kindness in the life of a young woman named Valerie. Enjoy this story. Life was not easy for Valerie. Her father heroically died in a war zone when she was still little. Her mother raised the girl alone, struggling to provide for her daughter, but she didn't do a very good job of it. Valerie's mother, Veronica, was sickly. She would sometimes be out of work for months at a time, until her employer started hinting that they didn't need perpetually ill workers. Yet again, after quitting of her own accord, her mother would lock herself in her room, sobbing into her pillow from helplessness. Valerie and her mom never had enough money. Sometimes dinner was just bread that the girl would dip in salted sunflower oil or plain noodles. At school, she was the worst dressed. Kids can be cruel, saying what they see. In class, Valerie was considered an outcast, with all the girls mocking the poverty of her clothing. She got used to her classmates' taunts as they whispered in the back about how Valerie came in a patched-up jacket again today. When Valerie turned 14, her mother passed away. Her aunt, her late mother's sister, took over raising her niece, but life didn't get any better for Valerie there either. Aunt Clara called the girl a freeloader and lazybones, but she herself had no inclination for work or keeping house. Clara quickly realized that Valerie was already quite grown up, so she could put her to work around the house. The aunt piled all the household chores onto her niece, even making the girl go to the nearby store to buy wine on credit from her best friend who worked there. Aunt Clara loved to have a little tipple of wine in the evenings. When there was no money for wine, she didn't hesitate to go get some homemade moonshine from the neighbor. At the end of the month, the two of them would dip bread in vegetable oil. Money didn't stay in Clara's hands for long. After paying debts, the aunt and niece would be broke. The drunken aunt would constantly harp on the same tune of "Susie, when are you going to get married?" often reducing her niece to tears. Her best friend who sold wine to Valerie for her aunt had a son. Evelina worked at her own son's store. Clara was insanely jealous of their family's wealth. More than once, the aunt brought up with Valerie whether she liked her friend's son, but the girl remained silent. When Valerie became an adult, Clara started needling her, describing the affluent life of Evelina's son. But she was thinking more about her own well-being than the girl's. If Valerie married the store owner, then she wouldn't be hard done by. She could go to the little store without even taking money. If she was related to the generous Evelina, she would even give her free goods. And then she wouldn't have to pay back debts. Clara owed her friend a considerable sum. But the grown-up niece was in no hurry to usher her aunt into the imagined life of plenty she had dreamed up. The always obedient Valerie suddenly dug in her heels, shouting that she wasn't going to solve her aunt's financial problems. She had really gotten on her last nerve, constantly pestering the girl and urging her to marry her friend's son. One day, Valerie couldn't take it anymore. "I'm not going to solve your money troubles," the niece said, then stormed out, slamming the door loudly. When she returned some time later, Valerie gathered her meager belongings, including a piggy bank her aunt didn't know about. She'd been saving money dime by dime since she'd come to live with her. The money saved should be enough to pay for a room rental. The girl also didn't forget to take her father's medal and commendation documents. The medals were the only memory of her fallen dad. The medal became a talisman for Valerie. The money was enough not only to pay for renting a modest room from an elderly landlady, but also for food for a while. After moving out from her aunt's, the girl wondered how she would live going forward. There was no question of going to study, since she would need to pay for the room and have something to live on while getting an education. One time at the supermarket, Valerie got a free newspaper publishing job openings in the city. There were many offers, but they were all specialized, and Valerie's lack of education didn't qualify her for the stated criteria. At random, Valerie chose the phone number of a company looking for a janitor. Where else would they hire her after high school? All that was left was to scrub floors to earn a basic living. In personnel, they hired her right away. Because of the particularly toxic staff, janitors didn't last long at this company. The office had been a mess for 3 days already. After signing her employment contract, Valerie immediately set to work. Walking into one room with many computers and office workers, Valerie diligently started mopping the floor. "What's that stench? I don't understand." Valerie flinched at the harsh yell right in her ear. The one shouting was a beautiful but very mean girl. She had a poisonous beauty like a wicked villainess. Dramatically arched black brows, evil almond-shaped eyes, raven black hair, high cheekbones, a sharp-pointed chin. Even a witch's peak of jet-black hair in the center of her forehead was there. One look at her was enough to see that this beauty was a real shrew. Nevertheless, the girl was more than good-looking. "What are you gawking at? Can't you smell that the mop reeks? Hurry up and rinse it with cleanser," the venomous beauty commanded imperiously. Passing by two guys sitting near the exit, Valerie heard them whispering as they checked out her figure and other assets. Valerie was also an attractive girl, but, unlike her vis-a-vis who had sent the new janitor to rinse out her mop, her beauty was gentle and soft. Valerie had kind facial features, large gray eyes, a high forehead, childishly plump lips, and thick light hair gathered in a casual ponytail with a simple terry cloth hair tie. Even her old, outdated baggy clothing couldn't hide her slim waist and full chest. Shyly lowering her eyes, mop in hand, she reminded the guys of a poor Cinderella who had been scolded by one of the evil stepmother's daughters. They shared these observations in hushed whispers, so the office queen Marianne wouldn't hear them. They also exchanged impressions of the new janitor. The girl was definitely not bad, her clothes and shoes were just shabby. But the guys were wrong to think Marianne didn't hear their whispers. The office queen had excellent hearing. All mean women who love causing trouble for others have it. Valerie hadn't even left the room before Marianne was already gleefully discussing every part of her poor old wardrobe with her female colleagues. Valerie wanted to break the mop over her knee and tell them all to go to hell. But memories of her own dire circumstances stopped her. Not letting her emotions get the better of her, the girl rinsed out the rubber mop head, then returned to the office and resumed mopping, ignoring the taunts of the female staff. Every day at work felt like hell to her. Marianne managed to turn not only the employees against the new janitor, but management too. Only one guy felt sorry for the girl, the same one who had called her Cinderella when they first met. One day he secretly waited for Valerie near the office, since the janitor's workday ended later than the other employees. After waiting for her, Jake invited her to a cafe. They chatted merrily, and Jake seemed to Valerie an open and kind guy. But the next day in one of the long office hallways, one of Marianne's friends approached her. "You fool! Who have you gotten mixed up with? Jake is Marianne's boyfriend. They're going to get married. She'll make your life hell if I tell her you went to a cafe with him. Marianne will soon be head of department. You'll really have fun then," the girl said snidely. The next day, an unpleasant surprise awaited Valerie. When she entered the room where Marianne's department was located, the song "Hello, Secondhand Girl" started playing, and Marianne herself, with a serious face, proceeded to ask her where she could buy a vintage jacket, just like Valerie's at the flea market. Marianne called Valerie's worn-out shoes an antique rarity and Spanish boots, coming up with increasingly elaborate insults for every item of the girl's clothing. Those present for Valerie's humiliation politely chuckled at Marianne's mean jokes, not wanting to clash with the spiteful careerist. Jake never asked Valerie to a cafe again. Accidentally running into the young janitor in the hallway, the guy shyly averted his eyes. He couldn't look the girl he had liked so much in the eye. He felt ashamed and disgusted by his betrayal, since he had snickered along with everyone else, present for the spectacle staged by Marianne. He had long since gone off Marianne, but he didn't dare even hint that they should break up. Jake liked his job at the office and his salary. He didn't want to rock the boat or get on the wrong side of the future department head. People like Jake are called opportunists. The guy hoped to climb the career ladder, to gain a foothold by any means, even if it meant trampling sincere feelings and betraying his nascent love. After the bullying of the janitor who had dared lay claim to her fiancé, Marianne looked like a satisfied, full vampire. The office queen was so pleased with the public humiliation of Valerie that she even left the young janitor alone for a while. The self-respect that had reared its head in Valerie's soul quickly collided with the reality of life. If she quit this job, She risked being left without a paycheck. When signing, she hadn't read the employment contract, but later, when she went to personnel to discuss quitting, she was informed that if she left before the agreed period of at least 1 month, she risked not receiving a single cent. Supposedly, that was stipulated in the employment contract. It was a shame to lose the money she had earned, so she had to stay. The money from her piggy bank was almost gone, plus now Valerie was caring for a little pet. She couldn't leave little Martin hungry. A tiny white kitten had somehow made its way into the office, and Valerie had to hide it from the vicious Marianne until the end of the workday. She was a kind soul. She couldn't leave the helpless month-old kitten on the street, so she took it home. The kind elderly woman whose room Valerie rented didn't mind the kitten either. Valerie named the kitten Martin, and when she was nearly out of money, the girl shared her last bit of kefir with her pet. Valerie's long-awaited payday coincided with the day the boss decided to visit the office. He was the head of the entire network of branches and businesses, and everyone was afraid of the boss except Marianne. She had managed to ingratiate herself with the former military man. The boss liked her sharp wit, predatory beauty, boldness, and audacity. When upper management made inspection rounds of their domain, the boss never failed to stop by his favorites department. Seeing him, Marianne got up from her desk and hurried to meet him, accidentally knocking over an unfinished cup of coffee sitting on the armrest of a bulky computer chair. The paper cup fell silently to the floor, spilling the remaining coffee. Quickly kicking the dirty cup under the desk, Marianne broke into welcoming smiles and approached her boss. "Hello, Mr. Johnson. Why haven't you visited in so long? We've missed you." Marianne coyly pursed her beautifully shaped lips as if wanting to kiss the boss. Then she shot a vengeful look at Valerie, wiping her brow with a handkerchief, and continued. "Although, there's no time to get bored around here. Our personnel hired God knows who as the janitor. The new cleaning lady does a lousy job. We're practically living in a pigsty." Marianne gently took the boss's arm and led him to her workstation. Pointing a finger at the spilled coffee stain she had left, she nodded towards Valerie with a look of disdain. "See? No. Do you see how our janitor cleans up? She completely ignores my work area. There's constantly dirt and dust here." Mr. Johnson frowned. He was not yet an old man, rather imposing, with a military bearing. Marianne knew perfectly well that the fastidious boss disliked disorder, so she decided to set up the upstart who considered herself her rival. "Come to my office," the boss curtly told Valerie as he was leaving. His tone boded nothing good. "Why is there a mess in the office? Why are you doing such a poor job of your duties?" "It was cleaned properly. I don't know where the stain and dirt came from," Valerie forced out with difficulty. "They just don't like me in the office. Marianne is constantly nitpicking me. She probably spilled the coffee on purpose. She just wants you to fire me." Suddenly, the girl found the courage to speak up to the boss. Mr. Johnson thoughtfully tapped the desk with his pen cap. "You seem like a good girl. I don't know where this dislike from the office staff came from. And who are you? Introduce yourself." Valerie gave her first and last name. Hearing Valerie's rather unusual last name, the boss became agitated. "And what was your father's name?" Valerie lowered her head but proudly raised it again. "My father was named Alex. He died." But the boss cut her off, finishing for her. "In the Iraq. He was my friend. The captain died saving my life, pulling me off the line of fire." Then he fell silent for a long while. Valerie stood across from him, shifting from foot to foot. The silence dragged on. "Well, I'll be. You say Marianne instituted hazing in the office? We'll sort it out. Go back to work for now. Tomorrow I'll order another janitor hired. It's no work for a hero's daughter pushing a mop around all day. You'll go to college. Is your mother still alive?" Valerie shook her head no. "Passed away long ago, then? Left you an orphan, huh? Got a place to live?" Valerie shrugged. "I lived with my aunt. Now I rent a room." The boss clenched his fist, resting on the desk so hard his knuckles turned white. "We'll sort this out." That day, Valerie ran home to her rented apartment, not feeling her feet from happiness. "Well, would you look at that? My first paycheck! And more, it's like a generous bonus, too." Dashing into the pet store, she stocked up on cat food pâtés for Martin. Spotting a cat toy, she bought that too. That day, she felt so proud of herself. After all, she was now a real breadwinner. She could provide for herself and her kitty. And the greatest joy, the boss fired that nasty Marianne on the very same day, the one who had made Valerie's life so miserable. Now no one would humiliate and mock her shabby old clothes anymore. Although, now she could actually afford to buy herself something new. After feeding Martin, the girl went shopping for new outfits. But the next day was even more wondrous. Coming into the office, Valerie was surprised to see some unfamiliar elderly woman mopping the floors. Acting uncharacteristically obsequious, the personnel officer approached Valerie with a new contract. She had been hired as a client service operator. In the afternoon, the boss arrived. He summoned Valerie to his office again, where he handed her the keys to an apartment. "The keys to my second apartment. I bought this apartment once for future children, but no children yet. You live there. It's not right for a hero's daughter to move from rental to rental. Oh, but I have a cat. Can I bring the kitten too? I won't go anywhere without Martin," Valerie said. Mr. Johnson laughed merrily. "Bring an alligator if you want. The apartment's been vacant for ages. You and the kitty can set up house there together." After gathering her things and Martin, Valerie warmly said goodbye to the elderly landlady and moved into the spacious 3-room apartment. After relocating, Valerie didn't walk to work but flew. Though listed as a regular operator, she hardly ever dealt with calls. The boss treated his late friend's daughter like his own child. He bought her new clothes, outfitted the apartment where she lived with appliances, and started initiating her into the company business. The childless veteran saw Valerie as his successor. He wanted her to be able to take over running all aspects of the office network and businesses if anything happened to him. It was only her Aunt Clara who kept insisting that there was no money for an education. The late father's friend insisted that Valerie enroll in university in the economics program. To everyone's surprise, given the transformation in the former janitor's appearance and demeanor, and management's attitude toward her, Jake soon found the courage to tell Marianne that their relationship had run its course. His pronouncement didn't wound Marianne in the slightest. She had long considered him a dead-end loser, already trying to hit on her boss's son at her new job. Free of his former office queen girlfriend, the opportunist tried to rekindle things with Valerie. But the girl already knew his true worth, so she coldly rebuffed his suggestion to go out that weekend. Valerie curtly turned him down, amazed that she could ever have been attracted to such a worthless person. The crafty opportunist was left with nothing, wanted by neither Marianne nor Valerie. How could she have ever pined for him, crying over his betrayal when he had led her on only to then side with Marianne? Where had her eyes been? What could be appealing about someone like Jake, other than his pretty boy marshmallow face? And she had suffered from unrequited love, even shed tears over him. Valerie berated herself for her past poor judgment. One day, while buying Martin's cat food at the pet store, Valerie knocked a can of pâté off the shelf. Deftly caught by a strong hand before it could hit the floor, the can did not fall. "Not skimping on your kitty, huh? Getting the good stuff?" said a tall, unfamiliar young man, nodding approvingly at the bag of premium cat food in Valerie's hands as he put the can back. "Trying not to. I just love him, that's all," a flustered Valerie replied, taken aback by the guy's quickness and agility. "I love my cat too. He's a Savannah," the young man said. "Well, mine's a purebred too, American street bred, just like from those fancy cats," the girl quipped in response. "He snuck into our office. I picked him up so this mean lady wouldn't toss him out the window. So the kitty ended up living with me. I named him Martin." Suddenly, for no particular reason, Valerie opened up to this stranger. Less than 10 minutes after meeting, the young man and woman were chatting like old friends. Archie appreciated Valerie's humor, and she liked his openness and views on life that he freely shared with her. Before she knew it, Archie had walked Valerie home. They stood by her building entrance for a long while, talking about everything under the sun. Neither wanted to part ways, but it was getting too dark outside. Valerie thought it improper to be so obviously smitten on a first meeting. But Archie beat her to it, saying he didn't want to leave either, but propriety demanded it. It was as if he had read her mind. Going up the steps, Valerie was amazed to realize it was all true. Those things you read in romance novels about connections, soulmates, finding your other half. She spent the whole night tossing and turning, replaying scenes from her well-thumbed novels where characters encountered their soulmates. In the morning, thoroughly unrested, Valerie got ready for work. For the first time in ages, she didn't want to go. She wanted to run to the pet store to try and find Archie again. In their conversation, they had even forgotten to exchange phone numbers. So imagine her surprise when, walking out the front door, she spotted him there. "You know, I couldn't leave you. I just ran home to feed my cat, then came right back to your place. I spent the whole night watching your window," the guy said, pointing to the second-floor windows of Valerie's apartment. "And you didn't sleep either. The light was on in your bedroom all night. It's fate, you see? It was meant to be. You're mine and I'm yours. That's all there is to it," Archie said, pulling the girl into an embrace, hungrily breathing in the scent of her hair. If you enjoyed this story, please support me by hitting the like button. And to be notified about new interesting tales, hit the subscribe bell when you subscribe. All the best to you.